The symbol of peace was that which held up the world. It was the light that shined in the darkness to illuminate a path for those to follow. The hero known as All Might was the one who protected this world, but he's gone now. In his wake, the seat is empty. There are none who can truly fill it, even if the number 2 has risen to the top. What All Might did was something no one had attempted before and something few could hope to replicate. To be all of what he was, who could do that? Well, for Toshinori Yagi, there were 2 that he had in mind. 2 who were bound from childhood in more ways than one. One who was blessed with power and one who was cursed to live without it. One who had the world at his fingertips and one who the world cast aside as useless. Both of these 2 shared something in common, however. They desired to be a hero. They wanted to be like All Might. Katsuki Bakugo and Izuku Midoriya were childhood friends. Deku, as he was called by his friends, following along sheepishly behind the confident and self-assured Bakugo. Deku watched as Bakugo developed a quirk as he sat there awaiting a power that would never come. Everyone, including his own mother, told him to move on and find a more accessible and reachable dream. Deku, no matter how much he wished to be one, could never be a hero. This drove a rift between the once 2 close friends. Bakugo treated him like yet another stone on the road to be kicked aside to make way for his victory. He constantly bullied Deku, who was helpless before Bakugo's destructive quirk. This continued all throughout school until the day came for the 2 to decide where they'll go to high school. And Bakugo placed his application for UA, the school that trained some of the greatest heroes in history, as well as the symbol of peace himself. But so did Deku. No way could a useless, quirkless wimp like Deku go to a prestigious school like UA, let alone as a hero. But the one who received One for All, the power of the symbol of peace, was no one else but Izuku Midoriya. The powerless and weak Deku was the one who was chosen to inherit the power of the strongest hero in history because All Might chose him. Anyone else could have been worthy of his power, and there were definitely candidates who were more capable, more powerful, more like All Might. But Deku was the one All Might chose because Deku reminded All Might of who he was. When Toshinori was standing on the sidelines unable to save Bakugo, it was Deku who took off running. Every hero stood there around as the destruction increased, but Deku was the one who saw Bakugo's terrified eyes and ran. A real hero runs when they see someone in need, something Deku was capable of when All Might wasn't. Deku, unlike All Might at his age, was cowardly. Even when he did have his powers, he was still a meek kid who was afraid of conflict. Yet despite this, he had the heart and a desire to be a hero. The one thing he shared with All Might was that heart of a hero that runs even when everything else in your body is screaming to stay put. This desire and that heart was in contrast with his nature, yet he still chose to pursue it, and that's what mattered. Anyone could have been a better fit to inherit One for All. There were quite a few who were stronger than Deku with quirks that would have made One for All even greater than it was before. There were those who were even a spinning image of All Might and would have been more capable of following in his footsteps, but it's because Deku, who was so unlike All Might, ran when he couldn't, that he was the perfect fit for One for All. If anyone could push past the limits that All Might was bound to, it was Izuku Midoriya. Deku earned the right to attain One for All. He proved he was capable. All Might's choice caused a shift that changed Deku's life forever. Not only was Deku no longer quirkless, but he was accepted into the school that no one believed he would be able to attend. The surefire failure that everyone predicted was changed, and the once powerless boy made an impact that was noticed by all those who laid their eyes on his power. Power that angered and confused the one who saw him as beneath him. Why does Deku have a quirk? He wasn't supposed to be one of the first when they're middle school to attend UA. He wasn't supposed to be able to defeat anybody. He wasn't supposed to make a bigger impact than him. Bakugo is supposed to be the one who shines. He's supposed to be number 1. He is supposed to be the one who wins. There was supposed to be no one who could stand in his way because Bakugo is the strongest. His quirk is powerful and can't be stopped. So how could there be someone with a quirk more impressive than his? How could anyone notice someone other than him? From the moment he got his quirk, Bakugo received nothing but praise from everyone around him. Not only that, his natural talent pushed him above everyone else in grades, athletics, and every way you can imagine. He always wins because he was told by everyone that he would. He never had to push himself beyond because he was capable of winning with ease. He scored number 1 in the entrance exam and was one of the top in the class. He was capable of anything because he was someone who could win. He didn't need anyone else because they were merely people that he had to beat. He never saw anyone other than himself because they were beneath him. until the one he saw as the weakest defeated him. Bakugo, who until this point stood at the top of the summit, suddenly found himself being one-up constantly by others around him. The once unbeatable talented boy was helpless before a villain and was saved by that quirkless worm who he felt was beneath him. That ant beneath his feet shone greater than he did in the entrance exam and defeated him in one-on-one combat. That boy who had no powers constantly was the one reaching out his hand to save him. The useless Deku was the one who the number one hero noticed. Why? That doesn't make any sense. Bakugo is the only one who should stand at the top, so why is he losing? Not only Deku, but a variety of others around him began to slowly outshine him. Bakugo, who stood at the lead, was falling behind. Because he refused to look around him and break his gaze from above, he was unable to see those around him evolving further than he was willing to. Victory was all that he was concerned with and neglected the other aspects of being a hero that would be able to further his growth. Even if he was one of the top students in the class, he didn't have the respect like Todoroki or Yaoyorozu. The teachers saw his talent, but they also saw his destructive demeanor. And because of this, by the time Bakugo managed to break his gaze, it was Deku's back that he saw in front of him. Bakugo was falling behind, and not only that, Bakugo was probably the reason why All Might failed, because he refused to reach out and take Deku's hand. The fates of Deku and Bakugo were intertwined. As one began to grow, the other saw this and had no choice but to change who they were. Bakugo, who was always at the top, worked harder than he ever had before so that he could win. Deku, who All Might chose, took everything he learned to push himself to one day be a hero just like his idol. This relationship of push and pull was something noticed by the symbol of peace and was something he would encourage to grow. These two could do something together more than he ever could alone, if only they learned how to work together. These two had the potential to be greater than All Might. For the world to survive the storm to come, it would be the new generation's responsibility to become better heroes than their predecessors. And here were two individuals who were capable of doing just that, but those who were held back by the past. Though they were entirely different, Deku and Bakugo shared one thing in common. They shared their origin and the fact that they were both trying to be like All Might. Both of them, ever since they were children, were influenced by the symbol of peace, as was the rest of the world. He was what drove them to their goal of becoming heroes, but they viewed All Might in two very specific ways. Deku was inspired by the All Might who was capable of saving the day and brightening the hearts of those who were in despair. As such, what Deku saw in the symbol of peace was a smile. Bakugo, who desired nothing but to be at the top, saw a hero who no one could beat. Evil was helpless against this badass hero who could smash any opposition that stood in his way because the number one hero was someone who always wins. And as such, Bakugo saw the symbol of peace as victory. Both were noble goals to aspire to, but both were also what ultimately held them down. Because Deku saw All Might as someone who saves others, he concluded that this would always be at the expense of himself. All that mattered was the safety of others because that smile was for the sake of the people, and as a result, Deku would slowly destroy his own body and sacrifice his chances at success. Because of what he saw in the symbol, he forgot that what also mattered was success. Deku destroying his own body prevented him from being able to save others when it mattered, and if he continued down this path, he would never be able to fight again. Bakugo's sole desire to win caused him to forget about others around him, to forget about the people that he had to save. The symbol meant victory, and he had to beat others at all costs. Victory that was achieved at the top was attainable only by one's sole ability, without the help of others. But Deku beat him time and time again. Deku tried to save him time and time again. He was helped and had to be helped by others. He won the sports festival, but it was a hollow victory because Todoroki wouldn't fight him at full power like he did Deku. As hard as he worked, victory felt hollow because it wasn't a true victory. Both of these individuals were trapped in the shadow of All Might, and the only way to become the heroes they were meant to be was to evolve beyond where Toshinori was capable of. They had to leave his shadow. Deku decided that he needed to find a way to succeed that wouldn't damage his body, and developed a fighting style that strayed away from that of his idol. Shoot style was a sign that Deku would be different from All Might, and would make that borrowed power that he had his own. Bakugo, who never saw those around him, formed relationships with Kirishima and Kaminari and began to rely on others. Instead of trusting only himself, he placed his trust in others who reached out their hand to him. His abrasive demeanor, while still being present, was beginning to soften and allow others to gain his trust. They were slowly learning to do the things that All Might was incapable of. All Might was self-sacrificing to the point of destroying his own body. He did this because he thought he needed to do everything on his own. This led him to his fall at the hands of All for One, and what caused the crumbling of the symbol of peace. All Might may have influenced the world, but for the new generation to evolve, they couldn't be like him. They had to go beyond. Up until this point, I have pointed out the influence that All Might has on the world, how his influence shapes the mentalities and definition of a hero in this world. But he as a hero was imperfect. He wasn't unbeatable, and his judgment wasn't flawless. His influence shaped the entire world except for those of the new generation. Because unlike those in the world, Class 1A and everyone they reached was influenced by the two who stepped out of the symbol's shadow.
A組ってクラスをしばらく見ていて分かったことがある。連中は気づいていないが、A組はその実、2人の存在が大きく作用してる。クラスをまとめるでもないし、中心にいるわけでもない。おまけに仲は最悪。だが、いつの間にか2人の熱はクラスに伝播していく。妙なことだな。大事の渦中に必ずどちらかがいるんだ。ジョーク、俺は心配じゃない。期待してるんだ。たとえそばにいなくても、奴らの存在がクラスを底上げしてくれている。
ベタ惚れかよ。気持ち悪い。
それが俺のクラス。1年 A 組だ。
As these two began to change, so did everyone around them. As they pushed and pulled each other, they did the same to those who watched them. They were in the center of every conflict, and they themselves were in the center of Class 1A. It was Deku who showed Todoroki that his power was no one's but his own, and pulled Todoroki out of the cursed shadow of his father. Deku inspired Uraraka to become stronger and face Bakugo head-on, and as a result made him recognize her strength and prove to the world there was nothing soft and weak about her. Deku reminded Ida what it was to be a hero and pulled him out of his darkness fueled by revenge. Kaminari saw the side of Bakugo that no one else could and was inspired by his trust in him that proved not only was he reliable, but he was also so great that the arrogant Bakugo noticed him. Kirishima was the one who Bakugo relied on and reached his hand out to, because Bakugo accepted him not only as an equal, but as a friend. Everyone who came into contact with Class 1A and the two who lied at its center were changed. All of the people who were affected by them were in turn pushed beyond the people who they once were, no longer influenced merely by All Might, but by those who were capable of being more than he ever was. These two were needed for the future. If the world was to survive the coming catastrophe, there would need to be heroes who could stand against it. All Might was a pillar, but he was a pillar that stood alone. He may have been great, but it was because he was trapped in what he himself believed the symbol should be that he fell. Against the darkness, one light could never be enough, and a truly strong pillar has others that help support it. That was Toshinori Yagi's mistake, what caused all others around him to leave. He was incapable of relying on others because he thought that the symbol needs to be a single entity. But Deku and Bakugo, who stood outside his shadow, would be capable of changing this. Bakugo, who is the only one who shared the secret of One for All, was the one who could stand beside Deku for a better tomorrow. Though they can't stand each other now, they could stand together as others stand together with them, but not unless they become more like each other. All Might is what inspired them, but as they now stand outside of his shadow, they are capable of correcting his mistakes. Deku had the heart of a hero that allows him to run into danger no matter how much he was afraid, because he wants to save them. Bakugo had the unrelenting will to succeed at all costs. If they are to change the world, they would first have to learn from the other and change themselves, to be less like All Might, but to be more like each other. The sparks that All Might passed on could have the potential to be so bright that they push out the darkness once more, but only if Deku could be more like Bakugo, and if Bakugo could be more like Deku. Thank you everyone for watching another video. Yes, that's right. This is the second Boku no Hero video I made, and it's gonna be the last because I don't think I'm gonna have any more to say on the subject. I would like to now thank my patrons, namely people like Flutter Butter, The Pretentious One, and Ches Mix. If you want more news on future videos, you can follow me on Twitter or head down to my Discord. If you don't want to be a slave and patron me monthly amounts of money, you can always check out my tip jar at Coffee. Thank you guys for watching. I'll see you next time. Goodbye.